So let's start off. Give me like the elevator pitch, 10,000 foot synopsis about Ben Kirby. Like, like what led you to this point and led you to Preacher Sneakers.
Yeah, I grew up in Louisiana through high school and then wanted to see the world. And so I went to undergrad at Arkansas in Fayetteville. Because,
That's where my significant other graduated from.
oh, really? That's
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah, my wife and I both went there.
she's
And
class of '07.
she went when? She
She was
graduated in
class of
'07?
'07. Yeah.
Okay, I was class of 11. So I went up there
Okay,
in
nice.
'07. Um, I was there from 7 to 11, and then once I studied marketing there, and once I got out, I went into the Marines as a logistics officer, and so I did the Marine Corps thing for 5 years or so, and during that time, I got married and did one deployment to Eastern Europe to do some things, and when I got out and got back, I got recruited to run a property management company in Austin. And so we moved to Austin for a couple years, and I was the VP of ops for this homeowners association management company. Uh, did that for a couple years, hated it because the business is just brutal, and decided to start looking at business schools, started applying for business schools. I didn't get into the majority of the ones I wanted to get into, but I got into SMU, and that brought us up to Dallas. That was in 2018, and studied entrepreneurship there. And I graduated May of 20, best job market ever. But halfway through my first year, March of 19, is when I was sitting on my couch, just watching these YouTube videos of this worship band. And I noticed the guy leading it was wearing some Yeezy 750s. And for whatever reason that morning, I felt compelled to make a video about it, like a 3-second video, basically saying like, dude, did y'all know this dude's wearing an $800 pair of shoes while he's leading worship? And
Yeah, that's not dead stock, right?
right. Yeah, exactly. And I up until that point, I'd been into sneakers for a couple years. I'd been flipping some sneaks. I've got a buddy in the NBA that had a Nike deal and hooked me up significantly.
Bobby Portis?
No, I wish. I met Bobby Portis, but
Okay.
Justin Holiday, who used to play with Bobby
Okay.
Portis in Chicago.
Yeah, nice.
Justin's lived in the same town as me in Ruston, and we've been friends. I was closer friends with his wife at first, but then they got married, and we're all good family friends now. But he had like
Nice.
a low level Nike deal, and was generous enough to give my wife and I a bunch of stuff while I was deployed in Romania. So that's what kind of got me into sneakers. And so I started following sneaker Twitter and all that stuff, and realized like, oh, you can actually flip these deals pretty easily if you get lucky. This
For
was
sure.
in like 2015, 2016. And I think it was in 20, whenever Virgil came out with the original 10, I hit on the Chicagos, just like pure luck. I remember sitting in my office at the property management job refreshing sneakers all day because they came out all in one day, and I missed all of them, but I hit on the Chicagos.
It's like a $3,500 shoe now, right?
Yeah, well, the next day I sold them for like 1,300. And
Yeah.
looking back now, like they go for like 5,500 because there's
Yeah,
so few.
I knew they were
dead stock
the
pairs now.
5,000 range.
But that's what got me hooked on sneakers. So, once you get into sneakers, it's pretty easy to identify the stuff that's popular or rare. And so,
For sure.
in that YouTube video, I noticed the Yeezys, and then there was a bunch of other videos I found right next to it that had all these different pastors wearing the Europe off-white ones, and the UNC off-white ones, and the off-white Vapor Maxes. These guys wearing, shattered backboard Jordan 1s. I'm like, dude, these sneakers are like legit heat. And
like thousands of dollars.
Yeah. And so, and at the time I knew, like, we go to church, I'm a Christian, but I wasn't aware of all this kind of hipster pastor culture. I was just like, I grew up in the South, you have a basic understanding of what church is, like in a lot of like basically Southern Baptist circles.
For sure.
And so my eyes were open to this whole like world of celebrity type pastors and stuff like that. So I made a few videos on the account, or a few videos on my personal account. And then I had a buddy encourage me to make an account doing just that. I came up with the name Preachers and Sneakers pretty quickly. I copied those videos over, and then within like 4 weeks from my couch, I had like 100,000 followers, and media agencies were calling and stuff. It was weird.
So I was for sure one of the first. I think I was one of the first 10K followers because
Nice.
I have me and my crew. I have a crew of friends, and like four of us are like super sneakerheads, and one of them sent it to us. He's actually pretty stoked that I got the opportunity to interview. But so he really grew up in the church, right?
Uh-huh.
And how has that affected how you run Preachers and Sneakers, or how you wanted to put the limelight in it? So like touch on that for me.
Yeah, cuz a lot of people that don't maybe do much digging on me or the account just assume I'm some troll that wants to bash
Yeah,
Christianity or bash the
I
church.
was shocked that you had such a close relationship with growing up with it, but it honestly makes sense because I don't think anybody else is going to take the time to notice that and like really be affected by it, right?
Yeah, and to me, like at first I was naive. I was just like, this seems weird that this guy's wearing these shoes that are, worth my mortgage payment. But very quickly I realized there was some like deeper issues that many people within the church were feeling very passionate about, and it was evident because people were cussing me out or being super encouraging, like, "Hey, this is a really important thing you're doing." I was like, "Dude, I don't think it's that serious, bro. Like, it's just I'm kind of annoyed that these guys are being able to wear $1,500 shoes, and that's it." But as somebody that's still involved with the church, like I care about us not looking like a clown show, and very noticed like it was very easy to make it that way because we, as modern Christians, love to be in the limelight, and we love the kind of the currency of fame. Like we want to be associated with fame and famous people so that our faith can be validated to the mainstream.
And shared to the mainstream,
And
right?
shared to the
Like,
mainstream and distributed like across those levels. And so I realized that the sneakers were kind of a symptom of something much bigger. And I felt like I was in a position now that people were paying attention to the account to continue kind of pointing to those kind of things.
So I've similar. I worked for a company that owned a software product that eventually got spun off the Ministry of Brands. But we worked with a lot of mega churches, and some of them, like we worked with Creflo Dollar, who has 5 jets.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why does this guy have 5 jets? Like these are like multi-million-dollar jets. And he was like, oh, it's because the Lord wants me to travel around, and that's how I share the gospel. And I'm like, that's bullshit, but okay,
Yeah.
So like, I had a similar thing.
People sniff through that. Yeah.
This is back in 14, and like I never even knew this aspect. Like this was just one product that we had. It was a faith-based product. We ended up selling it, but like it managed, church activities and stuff. So like, that was my first eye-opening thing to it. So I was just like, man, there's really like a world out here that I didn't understand because I didn't really grow up in the church.
Yeah.
But I've been to church. I'm from Plano. I'm from Dallas. So and like
hard to avoid it if you're from Plano.
Yeah, my girlfriend growing up was Baptist, so I would go with her.
Yeah, Plano, like Prestonwood, all these like just
there's so many mega churches. Like she went to First Baptist Church of Plano, which is a massive Baptist church, but I will give them the benefit of the doubt saying that like they're not a mega church, right? Like,
but it's interesting once you like, especially since you're working on the product side, selling to these churches, you realize that it's just a huge business, bro, and
it's massive.
Unless you're careful about your messaging about it to the outside world, it just looks like you're in it for profit.
Yeah, and but I mean, there is certain like there's that one church in Frisco. I forget the name of it, but that guy Keith Craft, they're
Elevate Life.
Elevate Life. They are like rich gospels, like how they project themselves, right? Like they want to do well, they want to be rich, and like that's how they project their image of their church.
Yeah.
So like, what's your family's reaction been?
They've been supportive. They've been tired of having to try to keep the secret because like until a couple weeks ago I was anonymous. But they've always been supportive because it's a cool thing to have a big secret like that, I guess, that your son is doing this interesting thing that's stirring up so many people. But yeah, for the most part, they've been supportive.
Get any pushback from anybody in your circle?
Not my immediate circle. There were like tertiary levels of people that had issues or like concerns with what I was doing, mostly from like my hometown. But the most pushback just comes from the randos online that think I'm a an a-hole in my basement trying to just troll people.
Of course, right? It's always people that don't know you, don't know what the mission statement is, right?
That's right.
Um, so like when you meet people now that you're out in the open, like how do you describe the account to somebody who doesn't, who has no idea, right? Like you're just like, oh, I run an Instagram account, or
Right. I'm still learning this because I've only been out in public for like, I've only been able to talk about it openly for like a couple weeks. Usually when people ask, I tell them I'm an author, and they usually ask like, oh, what do you write about? And it's like, well, okay, like trying not, I really don't want to be so high on myself. Like, cool. It's great to have a big platform. It's great to have a blue check, whatever. But I usually am like, so I have this weird Instagram account where I show pastors with expensive sneakers and people lost their mind about it. And I wrote a book about it. Because there's elements of it that it's just like, dude, this is ridiculous. Like, this is the most 2020 thing to happen. Like, how can this guy build a huge platform by just showing prices of sneakers? But it's cool to be able to say I'm an author now. Like, that's a cool thing to say, I think.
for sure.
Usually means you're poor, but
the book's good. I'm like 70 pages in. I didn't get to, after, because of the TCH tournament, I didn't get to get as much as I thought I would. But
oh, good. Well, thanks for reading.
But yeah, absolutely. They send me a copy. I'll be done in the next week or so. So what was the goal then when you first started PreachersNneakers? Were you like, what did you have a goal in mind?
I didn't know. The first, like, it took so little effort to do this. Like, I literally would just scroll Instagram, screenshot a pastor's photo that he had already posted, and then screenshot the StockX page, and then use the layout app, put those two things next to each other and post it like that. And then try to come up with a funny caption because it was funny to me. And then the comment section was even,
it's always the simple things, right? Like,
yeah. So like people thought, I got the comment all the time, like, dude, get a life. How do you have so much time to go research this stuff? And I was like, dude, this literally took me 38 seconds to see this guy's picture, find it on StockX, combine the two on layout, and then post it. Like,
I was always wondering if it was like user submitted, right? Like, are people just sending you stuff?
Some of them were.
I'm sure as it grew, it became that way, right?
Yeah. I mean, I was, so since I was full-time at SMU, I kind of had a college kid schedule. And so I had the time to kind of look through some stuff at first, but the point at the beginning, I was very unsure about, because like at first I just was pointing to this thing for my personal friends. Like, hey, this seems ridiculous. It's kind of funny. Like, it's kind of ironic. And I didn't want to go viral. I didn't have any goals. I just was like, hey, I saw this thing. I'm kind of annoyed about it. What do y'all think? And then once it became a thing, I had to basically develop what I thought and felt about it, because it turned into something way bigger than myself.
Yeah, touching on that, what's the goal now?
Now I care about, so like after having been like 2 years into this, having written the book, researched a lot of these things, the thing I care about is authenticity. And I know it's ironic for you and me to talk about authenticity, but that's the thing that at least on the Christian side of things, we need more of. Like when we have these online personas, and we have, like, authenticity goes into all these kind of things. Like from a church perspective, we should be real to the outside world. Like, hey, God isn't going to give you everything you've ever wanted just because you've donated money or you had more faith. Like, that's not how he works. He doesn't transact with you that way. Also, none of us are perfect. None of us are doing great. Like, we're all flawed in some way. Like, many churches really try to put on a nice show to basically put on a facade. And I think that's doing a disservice to a lot of people. But then also on an individual level, I think everybody could do better at being more authentic and more real in real life, but also online, because so much of our online presence is us trying to flex or us trying to show people like, hey, we're doing amazing, or like, hey, we're just crushing it in everything we do. And I think people appreciate authenticity more than the flex, I think.
Yeah, it's okay to be vulnerable, right? Like, it adds a certain level of transparency to everyone else around you. It makes you more trustworthy.
Right.
Actually,
sorry, my bad. I was just saying, people sniff through that. Like, especially with Corona, nobody was
doing great.
Yeah, nobody had a grasp on it. Everybody was kind of scared, and that's kind of started it, where it was like, dude, none of us are that special. Like, we should be real with each other. Like, to flex is, people can sniff through that. So yeah.
For sure. Yeah. So I went to church with my girlfriend on Easter, and like one thing I thought was cool was like they actually had highlighted how much how much has been donated to the church by month, by quarter, how much has gone back out. And I was like, wow, it's actually pretty cool to see somebody like being honest about this. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
I got to think the majority of churches, you're never learning about that, right?
Yeah.
Like,
That's like a whole nother, and I write about it a little bit in the book, but that's like a whole nother discussion is about the whole transparency piece, like how these mega
yeah,
churches literally don't have reporting requirements to the government, which like, I'm not a fan of big government by any means, but it's interesting how you can run a
multi-million
multi-hundred
dollar
million
business.
dollar organization with
Yeah.
zero reporting requirements, zero like regulation really. And yeah, it's refreshing for churches that are picking up on that, where it's like, look, we want to be radically transparent instead of being like touchy around the idea of money. Like, dude, I mean, we're living off, churches operate off donations. Like I think it's owed to the donators. Like, sure, like you want to have faith that you're donating out of, like for Christians, we believe that we're supposed to be obedient to donate to run our churches, to continue the ministry. But it's also naive or like intellectually lazy to be like, well, I'm just going to donate in faith, and whatever happens with that money happens. Like, dude, you also have a responsibility to take care of your pastors and make sure that they're not getting in a position to misuse those funds or use them for their own personal freaking safari trips and all that kind of stuff, you know?
Have you watched Righteous Gemstones?
Oh yeah. I've talked with Adam Devine before. He wore one of my hoodies in
Nice.
at a Clippers game, and the paparazzi took a picture of it. I appreciated him doing that. But yeah, that show's hilarious.
Yeah, they do, and they do a pretty good job of highlighting like when all the money's coming in, like when they're counting and stuff. And like I'm like, wow, this is like it's actually like this. Like Danny McBride, he gets a lot of his inspiration from things that like actually go on in real life.
Because he grew up in that, I think.
He did, yeah, in Charleston, as far fetched as it may be. And
Yeah.
he's really loyal to his area. He films in Charleston, does all that. I've got some friends that have worked with him.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Adam, I just randomly noticed that he was following, and I reached out to him and asked like, "Hey, can I see some merch?" And he ended up wearing it at some Clippers game in LA, and we kept in touch. I mean, we're not friends by any means, like,
but
we've messaged a few times, and it was cool of him to wear that.
He supports the page, yeah. So like, what was your reaction like when it went viral? I know you never expected 100,000 Instagram followers in a month, right?
Yeah. Anxiety. Like on one hand, it's cool. Like, it's cool to have something where people like, this is my new favorite Instagram account. But then at the same time,
it's conflicting for you, right? Especially.
Say again?
It's kind of conflicting for you, right? Especially.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because there's like also this contingent of people that are progressively getting more and more angry that say they're Christians or like they're on staff at a church or they're pastors themselves messaging me. And so that makes me like, as somebody that's in the church, like, wait, is what I'm doing a good thing or is it a bad thing? And so I wrestled with that for like a year because, people are unkind to each other in the comment section sometimes. I mean, a lot of times, not always, but it's easy to make fun of stuff and others in the comment section. And I saw that and I didn't love that, but I also saw the bigger like macro thing happening was that people were talking about the church's relationship to wealth and fame, self-help, image, all that kind of stuff. And that seemed like prosperity gospel. Yeah. Like that seemed like a good thing, like a net positive to me. And so I kept going. But yeah, right when it was going viral, it was cool. My wife and I were sitting here like, what is happening? I also couldn't talk about it with anybody because I was doing it anonymously. And so, and there's not many people out there that have experience with this kind of thing. So it took a while for me to get advice on how to do this properly and not bungle it. And
is part of the striving for authenticity the reason that you came public, or just because the book was coming out?
No, like doing an anonymous account for 2 years is exhausting. Like doing it for a month is exhausting. I did it. So when I wrote the book, I knew I was going to do this. But I wanted, like, I can't think of a more authentic thing to do than to say, hey, I'm going to table all this anonymity that I have, like my ability to go throughout the world unnoticed and basically dive into the conversation more, because I felt like I can only go so far on Instagram being involved, talking about these kind of deeper topics. And so
for sure,
that was part of the reason to come out in public. And, just like objectively, it's easier to live this way. Having a double life isn't exactly a chill thing.
No, absolutely not. Um, so now it's out there. The book's out there. Have you had the chance to have any impactful conversations with anyone who's been featured on the account?
Yeah, not as much of late. Like I think, we're 2 years into this deal. And so the guys
Mhm.
that I've posted about definitely know that I exist now. The first maybe 6 months that I started the account, I talked with a lot of them. Some that were nice, some that were understanding, others were just basically yelling at me over DM as a one-way conversation. But I've made friends. I've made friends with some of the guys that I've posted about throughout it, and I've appreciated their approach to basically be like open to critique and willing to say, hey, this made me rethink some of the things or rethink some of the things I wore when preaching. And also, like, I've got some nice things and I'm secure about it. Like, I love that. Like,
Yeah.
if you have nice things and people gift you, like, I talked with one guy that was gifted like an $80,000 watch from a golfer. And he's secure about it. He's like, look, I know this is ridiculous. And I know that most people don't get this. And it's up to me to have people around me that are able to speak into that in my life. And also for me not to just be flaunting it on the gram.
Yeah. That's like part of it, right? Is like when you have parishioners at your church that are struggling, especially during something like COVID, right? Like that money can go to far better things than it can on your feet or on your wrist or on your
Yeah.
neck,
And it's
you
a
know?
minimum, it's a bad look, even if it was
Yeah.
gifted
The optics
or
are bad.
right. And the optics matter. And I recognize like I've I have never done it perfectly and it's been messy. And I'm sure people can point to things in my life that make me a hypocrite or make me look like a hypocrite. But I genuinely just want people to think about think about this stuff before they post or before they buy something or before they call somebody out online. Like just to like have wisdom with all that.
I think it's a good sector there because I think that should go for everything, not just anybody that's involved in the church, right? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, like you don't have to like um, believe in the concept of the higher being to not be an asshole and flaunt like
Right.
you have something going on in order to like like people are broke and losing their jobs and they're furloughed. Like I think COVID has especially had an impact on kind of what you're doing because people a lot of people are doing without right now
Yeah.
more so than since the subprime mortgage crisis.
Right.
So I think it's those like just like keeping people in check with those optics is I think it's really important right now, and I'm
For
glad that
sure.
somebody's doing it on the scale you're doing it. So so
I
kudos to you
appreciate
on
that.
that.
I hope,
Yeah, for
and I hope
sure.
people can, like, if they aren't Christians or aren't believers, I'm hoping that the book can at least be helpful or at least be thought provoking for them too. At least to say, like, hey, there are people out here that aren't Christian assholes that are trying to wrestle with tough things that are imperfect. And also, like, hey, I can probably audit my own life, even if I'm not a Christian, to see like,
For
hey, am I flexing on people that are struggling? Am I making people envious of my life and causing anxiety and depression through my own Instagram posts? Like, there's plenty of that in there for them.
And like social media is a huge driving factor behind that, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, the only social media I have is Instagram. I guess LinkedIn. I don't really count that to stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have a LinkedIn account if I didn't work in technology.
Right.
So like, um, but I mean, like those are. I think that's a big driving force behind it is like the keeping up with the Joneses factor in the world now. It's 10 times what it was 10 years ago. Just due to the fact that everyone puts everything online. So,
Yep. And I think it's
um,
wise to just like consider maybe not posting everything that you're doing that's remotely cool. Like it
posting
might
that new
actually serve your
car.
people behind you or serve your neighbors to say like your proverbial neighbors, like not to be like, hey, look at this awesome meal I'm having. Look at this awesome vacation I'm on. That kind of stuff.
Like I never thought I'd become the Barbara Walters of influencers, but here I am. Like
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
um. So one thing I will say that like sneakers and religion can both be like super positive, but they can both be super toxic communities, right? Like I haven't
Yes.
like fully give you the background, but I went to University of Oregon in Eugene, Oregon, which
Oh,
is
okay.
like the birthplace of sneakers, right?
Yeah,
And
I've been
like
up there.
yeah, so I've been in touch with sneakers. I've been collecting sneakers since I was 14 years old. I have about 250 pairs. Probably more than that now with COVID. I bought a lot. I hit on a lot this year. Hit on the
Heck yeah.
Grateful Dead, but I sold them. I hit on some awful. I hit like this is my best sneaker year ever. Like
Nice.
somehow. Yeah, it's just wild. I just got insanely lucky.
That's so sick.
I know. I was like, and I refuse to pay. Like,
Resale is
I'll only pay resale if I get something that I will sell for, and I use that money to buy something that I want on resale. That's the only way I'll do it. I'm not spending out of my own pocket. And the fact
dude,
that you
it's
can
crazy
finance,
the people that do that.
You can finance resale now. It's hilarious to me. Like no interest. I'm like that should tip you off right there, right?
I think there's some legitimacy to buying, like diversifying investments. Maybe like I think buying some Red Octobers is probably a pretty safe investment if you have
For
extra
sure.
cash. Like that's probably going to go up. But in terms of buying like, buying the Mochas for $500, like dude, that you're overpaying for some Jordan 1s.
I mean, like even like the University Blues that just came out with like all that stock with all that hype on them. Like, I mean, they might go up, but they're okay. They're not like any different than any other University of Blue Jordan that's come out over the last 20 years.
Right.
But
Those University Blue 4s are pretty sweet though. The newest.
Yeah. The ones I like the Hyper Royals better than that are coming out next week, better than the UNC Blues that just came out. So, but both these, both of them can be really positive, really toxic communities. I mean, let's be real. Like sneakers are made by like 12-year-old slave labor, and people are now in COVID like making businesses out of using bots and things like that. So like they both have positive aspects of the community and toxic aspect. How's that intersect been for you, right? Like it's because you like sneakers and obviously you like the church, and like so like combining them to see the best of the best and the worst of the worst has to kind of like take a toll, right?
Yeah, I mean, being in this position where you're kind of in the middle, where people very quickly come to say their piece to you, I have been able to see the height of toxicity within the Christian church for sure, and so that's at a minimum exhausting to be receiving that for 2 years straight. And then on the sneaker side of things, I had never considered, before doing this account, I had never considered the whole supply chain piece, the slave labor. Like if we're honest, like I just didn't even think about it. But since like I've talked with some pretty smart people about ethical fashion and everything, and I think that's something that we sleep on a lot. And Christians, if you say that you care about the world, you probably should care about where your clothes are made or how your clothes are made. Like, got it. Not everybody can buy, a 5X priced shirt because it was sourced. But I think it's worth caring about, or at least worth asking about. Like there are ways. One of my friends, the first girl that ever interviewed me about the account, her name's Whitney Bauk, and she's a writer, and she writes a lot about ethical fashion and religion. And I asked her basically like, it seems like to care about this, it never stops. Like if you care about, where your sneakers were made, then you have to care about the factory conditions, and you have to care about where the materials were sourced and whether or not those materials were made in a way that didn't destroy the earth, that kind of stuff. And she was like, got it. But also we could always do a little better. Like it's at least worth saying, hey, can I do any of this incrementally better? Can I not buy fast fashion to try to fit in with the trends in hopes of maybe not destroying the earth? Like those things I'd never cared about before, and I care about now. And I think that's a win for everybody, just to at least to be aware that like, look, the cheapest clothing isn't the best clothing oftentimes. Now got it. Nike and Adidas are making clothes internationally, and they're the most popular brands for sneakers. But even Nike, like yesterday announced that they're doing like a refurbished program.
Yeah.
They're trying to do their part.
Packaging. They've gotten to do better. I mean, they're still using fucking kids slave laborers as people who make their shoes. So they're not. Let's not highlight that.
Right.
Has anyone from one of the major companies reached out to you?
I had a guy from Jordan Brand on my podcast who was on like the merchandising side, just like he was a fan of the account. He wasn't like representing them. And I've talked with a guy. I've talked with a lot of people in the past 2 years. It's hard. I talked with a guy from, I think, Billabong or something, like not a major sneaker brand, but like a retailer brand. Adidas, I've probably talked with people that are lower level workers, but nobody on the corporate side. Like none of the sneaker brands have had an issue with it, nor have they really seen me as an opportunity to
Yeah, I didn't know
advertise.
if it maybe sent you some shoes or something.
I wish. I've had a couple fans send me shoes, which was nice. But people have brought up like, dude, you should do a sneaker deal. It's like I'm not sure how that would look or work, but I would be definitely open to talking about it if Nike was like, hey, let's talk.
Yeah, I mean, I like at least like, hey, let me get something that I'd never be able to get unless I had a Instagram account with however
That's
many
right.
hundred thousands of
Let me
followers,
get some of those Oregon
highlighted
threes
shoes.
real quick. I know you got
Yeah,
those in the back.
Um, let me see. So, how has the experience kind of changed you? What have you learned from it?
Uh, Several things. I mean, one, this whole experience has caused me and my wife to audit our own buying, saving, giving behavior. This Instagram, it's very easy for people to show up and judge others and not,
Pass downs. Yeah.
and not look at yourself at all. And I want to be the type of person that if I want somebody else to be about something, I better be about that thing as well. And so it caused us to go through our socials to say like, hey, what was our heart behind when we posted this vacation pic? Like, was I just wanting people to think I'm awesome, that kind of thing? And then, it's opened my mind to things like that, like ethical fashion, which I would have never considered, about the ethics behind what we buy, why we buy. And then also it's made clear for me that I care, like some personal revelations. Like I care about authenticity and I care about justice more than I thought previously. I didn't know those two things were something that drove me in the past, but those two things drive me. Like it really irritates me when people are clearly putting on a show or clearly like trying to be bigger or better than they really are. And that really grinds my gears because I just want people to be real. Like we all
Yeah, for
we all
sure.
see through it, and I just want people to push for that. And I also, see that within a church context, and I want the church for sure to not be putting on a show because it's not a show, bro. Like we're talking about real life. We're not talking about some pie in the sky religion. People already have distaste for religion, and making a big production or obsession with celebrities through our church or making a big marketplace through our church just makes it look like a big production, and that doesn't serve anybody.
Has it changed your relationship with Christianity a whole lot? I mean, it's kind of touching on it, right? Like, I mean, I know it's a sensitive topic, so you don't have to go into that if you don't want to. But like,
Yeah,
everyone has their own personal, journey with that. So,
yeah, it's made me ask harder questions of things that I knew I believed, but I had to dig in. So like people in Christian spheres talk about deconstruction all the time, where it's like basically asking questions about all the things you were taught growing up and trying to understand why you believe those things. Like, is this just something put on by my parents and I just accepted it? Or is this something that I actually choose to believe? It caused me to do some of that because when you have groups, people in seemingly the same group telling you two different things about what you're doing, like, hey, what you're doing is bad. Hey, what you're doing is good and is helpful for the church, or this is dividing the church and is causing people to go away from the church. That caused me to really reflect and say, like, ask what I believe and why I believe that thing. So to be specific, uh, it's cemented that I don't believe in the prosperity gospel. I don't believe that God is here to give us that Gucci bag if we donate $100. Like he doesn't work that way. He's way bigger than that. Like who wants to worship a God that deals in such tiny transactions like that? Not me. And I believe that I think the biggest thing, it's kind of heady and seems a little arrogant, but I think that God is trying to, at least for Christians, give us a wake up call to say, hey, y'all have cared too long about a lot of stuff that doesn't matter. Huge buildings, huge production, beautiful speakers, beautiful worship leaders, like in and of themselves aren't bad, but at a macro level, a lot of our churches care too much about all that stuff and don't care about actually learning about who Jesus was and pointing people to him.
sharing the
And
gospel.
yeah, exactly. And sure, that looks different ways, and there's ways to do it where it's more comfortable or more attractive. But when you take a step back and look at the state of our modern church, it's a bunch of basically worldly stuff that we're spending millions of dollars on that I'm not sure has an equal ROI in terms of like pointing people to Jesus. So all those things.
That's a great point though. And like anytime that you do something divisive, whether good or bad, it's gonna, it's gonna cause people to stand on one side or the other, right? I mean, look at the last 4 years of politics we had, right? Like it was
that was part of it too.
Divisive period of time where, some people are so adamant about one side, some people are so adamant about the other. Not necessarily we don't know who's right or wrong. I'm not going to give my opinion on that.
Sure.
But you saw the rift that it caused, and like it's not good for anybody involved, right? Like we don't want to live life like that.
Yeah, and it's hard for people online to live in the gray,
tone it down,
or live in moderation. Like they have to be one way or the other, and
it's because it's validating, right? Like that's
and
the thing with online.
I've pissed a lot of people off because I've been unable to say like this is completely bad all the time. It is always bad to wear a $1,500 pair of shoes. Like I don't believe that. Like I think there's nuance to
some
everything.
Of those guys probably not, but some of them could have hit, man. Like I hit on sneakers all the time, like I can't fucking like some of them could be like executives of Nike could be members of the church and give them like you never know. Like,
but people online aren't willing to even give the thought to that.
And but like anybody who has any kind of like understanding of sneakers knows like you can get them if you work your ass off,
or if you got a backdoor deal. Like plenty of these guys have backdoor deals. I know for a fact. And like, who's going to turn down a backdoor pair of dunks or like chunky dunks? Like I'm not turning those down.
Oh, I want the chunky dunkies so bad. I just can't bring myself to spend $2,000 on them.
Yeah.
I've thought about flipping I got the Wotherspoons that I've never worn, the original Air Max, so
my wife actually hit on those.
Did she really?
2017, 2018.
Yeah. I hit on them and they've been sitting in my closet ever since. Then like one day I'm like, because I don't sell sneakers and make money. I'm in a pretty lucrative industry. I got a good job. I've been doing it since, for, going on 13 years now. So like, I'm comfortable in my career, but I don't know, like, I just don't like wearing a $2,000 pair of shoes is just seems so stupid to me. Even though
because it's like driving a new car. It's like immediate once you step out in them, they're gonna go down.
It loses the value, and like sometimes I'm under the temp philosophy of like you have to have the jewelry to pawn it because you never know it could happen, right? Like that's why they kept gold, So it's like you never. But I really like the shoe.
I mean that shoe's sick, but there's a reason it resells for so much.
Well, and it's even gone up even more because he doesn't have a relationship with Nike anymore. He's on Adidas.
Oh, he doesn't?
So no, he's an Adidas exclusive now.
Ooh, yeah. So like, that's like the Nike or that's the Kanye effect. Like with the Air Yeezys.
I mean, I went to Sunday service twice.
Oh, did you really?
I went to Sunday service at his house in Calabasas, and I went into the Forum in LA.
Dang. How'd you do that?
I got tickets to one of the Forum, but I know somebody who was part of his choir, and so I got the invite to go. And I was there. Brad Pitt was there, and a couple. I'll always say this. I'm a diehard Kanye fan. I think, but I also think Kanye is like incredibly off his meds and mentally ill right now, and not being the same person that Kanye used to be. And like a lot of it, I think it comes from him being a massive billionaire and doesn't think he can do any wrong, which that's not necessarily the case. Just because you're successful doesn't mean that everything you do is correct. And like, I grew up with somebody in my family who was mentally ill, bipolar, manic depressive, and off their medication all the time.
Same type behavior.
Yeah, I'm a fucking I know I'm a doctor in it, but I'm an expert on the subject because you have to like immerse yourself in that to figure out what's really going on when you're raised by somebody who has affliction, right?
Gee, so you see that in Kanye?
Yeah, 100%. And I'm really passionate about Kanye when he's doing the right thing and he's on his medicine. You can tell, right? And like, but now he's like, and he gets in like ego mode and God mode, like, because it is sad because like you see like. It's the same. It's divisiveness, right? Like you see two very different people on each side of the line, like causing a pull, and like some of the shit that he said, and
so you see
Candace Owens and stuff like that. It's like, bro, like you can't surround yourself with these people because they know exactly what they're doing when you're manic.
Yeah, and so you see the issue. It's like when he came out as basically a professing believer. Now you get into this weird world.
But he also thinks he's God. So like how
right?
like it doesn't.
And so like you saw, it was his 20, it must have been 2019 when he basically came out as a Christian, quote unquote. All the pastors started taking pictures with him on Instagram and basically posting him as a success story. And now he's like getting on Letterman or Jimmy Fallon and saying kind of this mixed up prosperity gospel thing and getting on Joel Osteen's stage. And it's like, dude, do y'all not see what's happening here? Like I don't want to be the type of person that questions his salvation, but I do want to like at least say like, this seems ridiculous. Like whatever happening is here seems not.
Yeah, I've had to take a step back from Kanye, and I was his biggest fan for a long time. I own his shoes. I won't wear them anymore. It's in my closet. Like, there's just a lot of things like I think he did the wrong way, in my opinion, or at least rubbed me the wrong way, right? Like, who am I to, to set him on a pedestal, which shouldn't have been done in the beginning. He's just, a normal person. But
right.
I think, when he's on and he's doing well in his mental health, you can totally tell a difference between that and what's going on now.
Yeah.
So,
but fame can make things so much worse. Like fame in and of itself isn't immoral.
He's got a bunch of yes men around him,
right?
I think he removes everybody who's not a yes man from his life, which is not necessarily something you want to do.
Yeah.
So what's next? Like, get the book out there and doing a book tour, or like post COVID, or what?
I don't know. As of now, I'm not doing a tour because the publisher is basically currently I'm not doing a book tour. I wish I was, but COVID has made it complicated.
Possible.
Yeah. If the book does well, maybe I'll write again. Like I enjoyed writing. I don't love like making a thing out of myself. Like I don't love self-promoting. I think the book is going to be helpful for people, and so I'm fine promoting it, but like I don't want to get in the business of just self-promoting and building my own brand. But
sure.
If the book does well, I'd be open to writing again. My agent and I are working on a TV pitch, like for a dramedy that involves some of these same things. So that could be something. It hasn't been picked up yet, but we're shopping it around. And I've also, I studied entrepreneurship. Like I'd be down to acquire a business or start a business.
I read your book. Where were you DJing at in Deep Ellum?
I did. I had a recurring deal at Iskina. It's now called Booty's Street Food.
Yeah. Okay. At the hostel.
And like literally no one came through ever.
I mean, they never did a good job of like promoting that they had a bar in there.
Right. Like, but it was fun. I mean, they paid me like $250 to do 4 hours there, and I could play whatever I wanted. And they had their own.
You have a background in DJing, or is there something you picked up?
I picked it up in 2017 when we moved to Austin, and just like built the business from there, and basically like cold calling. And I had a friend take a shot with me for her wedding. It was this big Aggie wedding of like 350 people, and I did okay, and then was able to parlay that into other referrals and stuff. And so I did in 2019, I did maybe 20 weddings, and I had maybe another 20 or 30 club gigs.
Nice.
And so that was really fun. And then COVID destroyed all that. And so I basically have tabled it.
It'll come back with a vengeance, though.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still in like a text group with some of the bigger DJs here in town. And I had passively.
Like wedding DJs or DJs?
Like DJs, like DJ Soulja. You ever heard of him?
Okay. Yeah.
He kind of looks like Jesus.
Yeah. Nero, I know a lot of those dudes. Nero, DJ Sober.
So like as a married grown dude, like I wasn't exactly going to Candle Room every weekend, but if they were inviting me, I would go DJ. Which is, I mean, it's like beats working for sure.
I'll wrap it up. What's your favorite sneaker?
Ooh, I have two. The Atmos Air Max 1s.
Okay.
And then the Shatter Backboard Jordan 1s.
And they're redoing those, right? They're redoing them right now.
Are they?
They're coming out with new colorways of the orange and black Shatter Backboard. They'll be out in the summer.
I remember they came out with those like Halloween ones with the patent leather.
Yeah. They're actually doing those Shatter Backboards. I saw.
Oh, people are gonna freak out about those. That's my favorite. I just like that orange is like my favorite color.
And like anytime you can get like avant guard colored Jordans when it's not like black, red, gray, white, you're like sweet.
Yeah. People are going to be fighting about those. Like they were fighting about the Toro 5s this past weekend. Like they're going to freak out about those. So I'll probably end up paying resale. But yeah, those are my two favorite.
Sneaker.
My most prized sneaker?
Yeah, what are you worth the most?
I don't have a ton. I've got the Bread Jordan 1s that I hit in 2017 when they re-released or maybe released for the first time. And I bought them to resell them. Like I was fully like reselling sneakers, but I was like, man, these are too cold to sell. And so I wore them, and like they resell for a lot now, but Jordan, like I can't pull off many sneakers. I'm just average looking white dude. And so like Jordan, yeah, Jordan 1s, Air Max 1s are ones that like I feel confident wearing. And so like I've got a pair of those like watermelon Miami Air Max 1s that I wear a ton, like nothing special, but I really like wearing those. And then I've got 2 pairs of Jordan 4s. Somebody gifted me the Bread Jordan 4s,
Nice.
a follower of the account. And then I hit, they were general release, but the Jordan 4s I thought looked cool.
I have those too. I love that shoe.
Yeah, so I bought those because like I could probably wear these with something.
Yeah,
so
it's a heavy shoe.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, not exactly functional for me, but what about
what
you?
church you go to? Me? So I have the Dior low tops that I hit on. Yeah, I had to go to Miami to get them. Those are probably the most expensive that I own. I'm gonna hold on to them for a bit.
Yeah, that's an investment piece right there.
My favorite sneaker is actually Asics Gelite 3, the originals, not the split tongues.
Okay.
But outside of it, like I said, I branch out to a lot of different ones. I love New Balance too.
Asics are comfy. New Balance are comfy too.
Yeah, and like you can wear them with a bunch of stuff. My favorite sneaker that I own, I have the UNC Off-Whites that I bought resale when I sold another pair of shoes, and I have a pair of the Grateful Deads that I haven't sold yet that I'm going to.
The fuzzy ones.
Eventually, but the yellow ones, yeah, I hit on those.
Those are sweet.
Like I had a wild summer on sneakers. I hit on both the Off-White 5s. I hit on the Dior's. I hit on the Grateful Dead. I hit on the Jordan. What are the Jordans that just came out? The 4s, the tan ones that were scratch off. I hit on those.
Wow.
Hit on the smoke grays. It was crazy.
It feels like oh, this is like I could do this for a living if I hit this many times.
I'll never hit on anything. I didn't sold any of them. I kept them all. I just didn't spend $1,000s and not even like selling them. So it was like that's my problem. It's like I always say I'm gonna sell them,
Well, the good thing is that you'll be able to sell them, like unless they did some like re-release.
I know, like my girlfriend's like you got to do something like with all these shoes. I was like, I know, it's bad.
She's like, take me out to dinner once in a while.
Yeah, she's the same way with like bags and stuff, and like she like, but like it's bad. I this year I said I was gonna chill a little bit, and I have. So there hasn't been like something I've really, really wanted yet. Like I want the Hyper Royals, so I'll try to hit on those. But I basically create sneakers accounts for like everybody in my family. That's how I like. I'm like nice. With like 8 old iPhones sitting around that I don't use anymore. So it's like that's how I go about it. I'm never gonna bot or anything like that, but that's about the closest that's I'll get.
For sure. Nice, man.
Well, Ben, I really appreciate it, man.
All right. Well, hey, I appreciate you giving me the time, man. We'll talk later.